What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a brand new podcast and series called The Bowling Breakdown. I'm your host, Zach. I run ZVL Bowling, and this is going to be a brand new weekly podcast where we come in, we talk about everything that's happened in the world of bowling for the last week. We've got news. It could be PBA, bowling ball, company news, whatever it may be. We'll be going all in on that side. We'll have some opinion pieces at the end, and we'll cover whatever we can in these episodes. Remember, make sure to follow and like if you guys enjoy these kinds of videos. This is going to be a brand new series. I'm really hoping you guys give you a few different platforms where bowling can be consumed on. Because right now, podcasts and bowling are a little bit smaller. There aren't really any major ones that are out there right now. So I'd love to be able to jump into that space, try to help uplift it a little bit, hopefully bring more people into the bowling podcast space. But without further ado, let's get right into it. Today, we are starting with some news from Lucky Strikes Entertainment. They, formerly Bolero, came out with a couple of different news articles in the last week that are a little bit interesting. So first of all, a couple of days ago, Lucky Strikes came out and said that they are unveiling a brand refresh for AMF. If you didn't know, Lucky Strike / Bolero consumed AMF a couple of years ago when AMF was struggling a little bit. That's how Lucky Strike received some of their bowling centers, was by purchasing the AMF brand. Well, AMF has been there, and bowling centers have had AMF logos on them and been called AMF centers, but they are now getting a brand new refresh. And what Lucky Strikes is doing is kind of doing a bit of a change of direction for some of their centers. So in the past, they've been rebranding all of their centers to Lucky Strikes locations, adding the red lights, making it more of like a nightlife type feel. But now AMF is going to be going in the nostalgia direction. They want to make it nostalgic. They want to make it feel like your local old school neighborhood bowling alley. And that's what they're doing with a lot of their new centers. They have over 60 centers that are going to get rebranded to this new AMF logo. And it seems like they're doubling down a little bit on league bowling and tournament bowling. What we've noticed on social media in the last couple of days is that AMF has actually partnered with a lot of PBA professionals. Jason Belmonte is one of the most notable ones, where he's now coming out as a hashtag AMF partner, promoting what AMF is doing. So there have been some partnerships happening, and I feel it sounds like the PBA is going to be going to a lot of AMF centers. So it seems like Lucky Strikes is taking a little bit of a step back and listening to the bowling community about the need for league bowling, more of a push for league bowling, because earlier, before I recorded this, we had another new news segment come out from Lucky Strikes detailing their commitment to league bowling. This one was a little bit of a shock, in my opinion. But what they are doing is they are doubling down, committing more to league bowling. They are, quote, investing in upgrades to lane conditioning and oil patterns across 270 centers. Now, mind you, they only own about 360-ish centers. So most of their centers are getting this upgrade, providing league bowlers more consistent playing conditions and an enhanced experience on the lanes. And then they talk a little bit about how league bowling is important to them. Trista Kimmis is the VP of leagues at Lucky Strike Entertainment, and she pushes hard. She's been a league bowler for 30 years, focused on making leagues more accessible to first-time bowlers and anyone looking for fun. Because there is now a league open house that is happening as we speak, up through July 30th. It is where you invite new and longtime bowlers to explore upcoming leagues, learn about league perks, and connect with their local bowling community, trying to promote leagues, make them a little bit larger. So this along with the AMF rebrand really pushes that Lucky Strike is focusing more on the league side of things. That is a fantastic thing. That's one of the biggest things that people knock Lucky Strikes Entertainment for. So that'll be really cool to see in the coming months. I really hope they stick the landing on this one. Everyone is very hesitant when Lucky Strikes gets brought up, but this hopefully is a step in the right direction. That's what we're all really hoping on. I'm trying to be optimistic in the situation. And if this actually works, if they actually do start promoting leagues more, give league bowlers a very good oil conditions, if they improve their open play oil conditions and they give people something good to practice on, or at least centers where they can go to practice, that could be a massive step in the right direction for bowling. Bolero / Lucky Strikes is the largest business in the world of bowling, owning so many bowling centers. They own the PBA right now. They own a lot of things. So overall, let's hope this is overall ends up being a positive thing for Lucky Strikes Entertainment and for the world of bowling. But we will have to see. League bowling season is coming up in the end of August. So let's hope that they can stick the landing on this one. So we are going to be done then with Lucky Strikes Entertainment. We're going to go to a little bit of bowling ball news. We did not have much bowling ball news over the last couple of weeks. Bowl Expo happened in early July. That's where we got a ton of announcements. I believe Brunswick announced 15 bowling balls. Storm announced 2 new bowling balls, 2.5 with the Ion Max 40, their limited edition bowling ball that came out at Bowl Expo. Motive had just announced their Jackal Ghost V2 a couple of weeks ago, which we'll talk about in a minute. There's a little more that we know about that ball. But Swag Bowling came out in the last week and announced their 6 brand new bowling balls coming out in the next 2 months. So Swag Bowling is a little bit of an interesting case with bowling ball releases, if you didn't know. Most companies, they release 1 to 5 bowling balls every single month. It's really a very consistent schedule. Every single month, you expect new bowling balls from all 3 brands. Motive is a little bit longer lasting, where they release a ball every 45-ish days, but Storm is about once a month, and the Brunswick brands are about once a month. Brunswick releasing more balls overall than what Storm does. But Swag came in January of 2025. They released 6 bowling balls. Then they didn't release anything until August again. Then 6 more. January comes around, 6 more. We're back in July and August. 6 more bowling balls are coming out. This means Swag has 24 total bowling balls on the market. Swag Bowling is a newer one into the space. They're a company that's been around for a while, but they went through a full rebrand and really just a full refresh in January of 2025 when they released their original 6 bowling balls. Well, now they're coming out with grouping number 4. Grouping number 4 includes bowling balls such as the Swag Insanity Pearl, the Swag Insanity Hybrid, the Fusion Pearl, the Unknown Solid, Black Dragon Hybrid, and Executioner Solid. 6 brand new bowling balls. Now, I want to dig into these just a little bit. We like to focus on bowling balls, so I want to talk about a few of them because there are some weird ones. I got to admit that. Insanity Pearl, for example, I consider that a weird one because this is a middle tier pearl bowling ball that comes out of the box dull, 2000 grit. That is stereotypical dull cover stock surface for a bowling ball. So it's a little bit odd. This ball, like I said, is a little bit weaker. It has a 2.52 RG. That is a higher RG, so the ball wants to hook later down the lane. An 0.34 differential means the ball wants to be a little bit smoother and hook a little bit later. But they put 2000 grit on it, so this seems like a very controllable pearl. So I'm a little curious why they didn't put polish on it. From what I can see, Swag puts polish on very few bowling balls. There are not many that they actually release that actually have polish on them. So I don't know if they're trying to work on their polishing, if they're trying to work on a new compound, whatever it may be. But this one is coming out at 2000 grit, whereas the hybrid version, which is more of a teal / dark blue and black, is coming out at 3000 grit. So the hybrid should be a little stronger based on the cover, but it's a little bit shinier out of box, so I'll be curious to see a comparison of those 2 bowling balls. Fusion Pearl, there isn't really anything too grandiose or special. We had a Fusion come out one of the last iterations of releases, so now that was a hybrid. Now they have the Pearl version of that coming out. It's a colorway that really looks like a Harsh Reality Solid, the orange and black and gray. Unknown is an odd one. It has the Illuminati logo on it. That one was surprising to see. I guess the Illuminati logo is not copyrighted, I guess, is my guess. But that one is going to be an interesting one. That one is a symmetrical solid, 2.51 RG, 0.48 differential, so a bit of a stronger symmetrical solid ball. The numbers are very akin to the Unreal Solid, so I'll be curious how those 2 compare against each other. Because again, right now, Swag Bowling has 24 bowling balls out. They have now surpassed Motive with how many releases they have on the market, but they haven't announced discontinuing any of their older equipment. So I don't know if their plan is to have 30 to 40 bowling balls out at all times. I'm not really sure how many lines they have at their factory in South Korea, but they are going to have a lot of bowling balls on the market. Once we hear more about discontinued bowling balls, I will let you guys know, and you'll see videos and things on this podcast about it. But right now, they have 24 out. Pretty crazy. But that one is going to be very interesting to see. It is a good colorway. It's like a light and dark blue. They did a good job with the color on that one. I don't know about the Illuminati logo, though. That one's a little odd. But then we have the Black Dragon Hybrid. The Dragon series is probably the most popular of the Swag bowling balls, the Pearl and the Solid and the stained glass spare ball. But this one now is going to be a hybrid, black and gray. The odd thing that we're still trying to figure out is that the core that is advertised is not the dragon core that they say it is. It is actually different numbers. And I checked with someone who received the bowling balls already. Swag doesn't put the core numbers on the actual box. Most companies do, Swag does not. So we're not really sure what the core of this Black Dragon hybrid is. Based on the website, it says one thing, but based on what the other dragons are, it's another. So I don't know if they changed it without telling anybody or without promoting it a lot or not. So I'm a little curious to see where that one goes, but the dragon line is a very affordable line at the end of the day. So that's the really good thing with that. Then finally, we have the Executioner Solid, and this one is going to be something. It is an insanely strong solid asymmetrical bowling ball. This is the most expensive ball you can get from Swag right now, $185. The intermediate differential, that is a number that determines how much the ball is going to hook, is the highest in bowling by a lot. So this core is going to be really big. The cover says it's really big, so I'll be curious to see how that one is compared to some of the other big hooking monsters on the market. Being $185 makes it $10 less than Hammer, it makes it $20 less than Storm, and it makes it $30 less, $30 to $40 less than Motive. So Swag has really pushed themselves as the budget brand. They kind of started that way, but then they were matching a lot of prices to the other companies, where now they kind of took a little bit of a detour to lower their prices just a touch to make themselves more of a cheaper option. So if you're in for a budget bowling ball, they have it. They have cheaper bowling balls. The big thing with Swag, they're new. Their cover stock formula still seems a little bit weaker than the other brands. So hopefully this new version of Swag bowling balls is really going to be able to pick up and take off. We will be able to see. We've had a couple of reviews come out so far, and they roll just like a Swag bowling ball does for the couple of guys who are reviewing them. Right now, it seems like Luke Rosedahl and Charles Hutcherson from The Hype are the only two who've really put videos out on YouTube. So hopefully we get more in the coming months, or coming days at least even. But I know Swag doesn't really send their equipment to non-staffers very often. So I have a feeling we're not going to see a whole lot about some of these bowling balls. The other big issue on the YouTube side of things that I can talk personally from being a YouTuber is that Swag doesn't get clicks. Swag, along with Motive and a couple of the smaller Brunswick brands, get the least amount of views when you ever make a video on them. So that is something that a lot of creators have to stay attuned to, because if you're releasing a video that only gets a couple thousand views, is it worth all the time, money, and effort for the bowling balls? That is one of the bigger questions that gets asked. So I'm hoping we get more reviews. So far, no luck, but hopefully in the next coming weeks, we can have some. And once I hear more information, I will be telling you guys about it, because on this podcast, our goal is not just cover the basic news you can Google. We want to get into it, talk about some of the reviews, some of the influencer things, some of the professionals, what they say based on some of the other podcasts that are going around. So, which is going to be a great segue into our Jackal Ghost V2 talk. Jackal Ghost V2 got announced by Motive. This is supposed to be the new and improved version of the Jackal Ghost, which was just very recently discontinued. Now, reviews are out. We're seeing a lot more of it in the public. I was able to actually cross with somebody at a tournament who had this ball and was able to ask him a little bit. And overall, it sounds like this is not really a Jackal Ghost. This acts like a stronger and smoother Ghost. It really is more of a baby Jackal Onyx, is what it seems to be. So that could be good or bad. It's a good spot in the bag for Motive to fill, because they had a bigger gap between their big, strong, slow bowling balls and their strong and quicker bowling balls, which is really just the Evoke Hysteria right now. So this bridges that gap pretty well, like what the Jackal Ghost did, but it does seem stronger and smoother. Now, it does look really good when you play a little bit straighter going down the lane, but it is definitely a smooth bowling ball. Very, very slow down lane, a lot slower than you'd expect. Still quicker than an Alpha Crux is what I've been seeing a little more, but that debate is still up in the air. I'm excited to have more people actually try this Ghost. It only comes out in a couple of weeks. So hopefully when it releases, I'm going to be able to ask a few more people that aren't just Motive staffers or guys who are able to sneak a Motive ball early. Hopefully we'll be able to get more public opinions of what these bowling balls look like, what that ball looks like in particular, compared to something like a Raptor Rain. Nobody has done that comparison yet, and I'm really excited to see what the comparison is, or between the Evoke Mayhem. A lot of people haven't done that one as well. I asked a Motive staffer this weekend. He said the Mayhem is a bit weaker than the Jackal Ghost V2, which is basically what the website of Motive says when you do the comparison tool, which is a good sign. That gives the Jackal Ghost a nice little niche spot that it's going to fit, but hopefully we get a little bit more in the coming weeks. That is everything for bowling ball news. Let's go over to some breaking news from Hank Boomershine at Storm Bowling. So, Storm recently, back at Bowl Expo, announced the Storm and F5 sensor. This is a sensor that you put into the finger hole of a bowling ball, and it's going to be able to track a ton of stats. F5 is a company that did this in the baseball industry, where they made baseballs with a sensor in them, where you can track revolution rate, you can track speed, you can track direction of the spin rate, whatever it may be. You can track a ton of things. A bunch of colleges love using it, which is a cool sign. But now they introduced that technology into bowling, partnering with Storm Bowling. This is going to be a product that you put into the finger hole of a bowling ball. And once you put it in there, you can lock it into place. And then it's going to track your rev rate, your speed, your tilt, your rotation, a ton of different numbers. And this is going to be something that actually is going to be free of charge for Storm VIP Pro Shops. If you aren't aware, a Storm VIP Pro Shop is a membership really for a pro shop to enter. So if you pay X amount of dollars, Storm will send you a bunch of their bowling balls early. And along with that, you're going to get this F5 sensor as well. You also get some rebates and a few deals and access to a few extra things as like Storm's premier pro shops. But this is going to give you access to this sensor, which is going to be a really good training tool. It really seems like a replacement for Specto in some ways. Specto will still be bigger and more grand in a lot of senses because it can track so much more, being able to track the whole lane. But this is going to be a cheap man's way to be able to get Specto without needing an app of any kind. Now, you will need an app to be able to see these numbers, but you won't need to actually use your phone to record anything. It is just all within the bowling ball itself. Now, Hank Boomershine was on the Beef and Barnsey podcast 1 week before this. That was in around 7/21, I believe was the day of the podcast. He came out and said, when people ask what is the release date, because they have kept that pretty hidden, that they are aiming for October, but they're hoping to have it done sooner. So it's going to be very soon after the league season begins that people will be receiving their F5 sensors. Now, you're going to see a lot of videos on this F5 sensor going around the internet. You're going to hear a lot about it because this is a kind of revolutionary change into the world of bowling, because a lot of people don't really know how to track their ball speed, their rev rate, their tilt, their rotation. It's very difficult to do. We don't really have technology to do it. Lane Tracks is an app that came out that really does a good job at tracking some of these things. It is an app that you use on your phone. You have your phone record your shot, and it can kind of predict it using some AI stuff to be able to track past shots, know what those rev rates and speed were, to be able to say what yours is. It's accurate, but it's within about 50-ish revs and about 1.5 to 2 miles an hour. So it isn't completely precise, whereas an actual sensor can be as precise as humanly possible. This is going to be one of the first ways we can get a truly precise reading without something like a $15,000 Specto, because Specto is absurdly expensive for a bowling center to install. And understandably, because it's a ton of behind the scenes stuff and you're buying the software, all this jazz. But this is going to be a much cheaper option to be able to track all of those things. So that's going to be really exciting to see. I'm hoping to get my hands on one. My local shop is a VIP Pro shop, so it'll be exciting to see what it ends up looking like when we actually receive ours. So that is the Storm and F5 sensor news. We're going to end it with a little bit of PBA 50 news. PBA 50 just had their Players Championship. The Bud Moore Players Championships just concluded, and it was an awesome tournament, a little bit of an easier shot. I think there were 5 to 10 300s that were shot during the event. During match play, there were a lot of super high scores. I was seeing the winner, who we'll talk about in a second, was losing some matches 267 to 260. There were some crazy high scores that were going on. And the event is concluded. The cool thing about this event is that the finals actually happen in the Moores' local private bowling lanes. Bill Moore, the tournament sponsor, has 2 private lanes in his basement. And here is where they have the finals. There isn't much room to watch. There isn't much room for a lot. But they were able to have the finals there, which was a very cool thing to see. Now, I want to go through the top 5 bowlers, and I won't go through all the matches. We'll mainly talk about the championship, but top 5 bowlers for the event. Mika Koivuniemi was our number 1 seed. Coming in, Chris Barnes, Brad Angelo, Pete Weber, and Tom Hess were all of your top 5 bowlers. Match number 1 was Pete Weber versus Tom Hess. Weber ended up defeating Hess 224 to 213. Match number 2, Brad Angelo defeated Pete Weber 247 to 224. Match number 3 was Chris Barnes defeating Angelo 256 to 233. Championship match, Mika defeated Barnes 245 to 235. In this match, Chris Barnes unfortunately missed a 10-pin in the 8th frame to lose the match. That put him very far down. Going into the 10th frame, though, Barnes could have struck out to win. He rings a 10-pin in his first shot in the 10th to lose the match, and then gets a spare and then 8 for 235. So it was a very, very close match between Mika and Chris. Mika and Chris are very good friends, so it sounds like they had a jersey bet going on for this. So Mika now gets to design a jersey for Chris Barnes, which is going to be very entertaining. I can't imagine what that's going to look like. But it was a very cool event. This is one of the coolest events for the PBA 50, just because of how that finals format is. It's such a cool area to have a finals in a little 2-lane enclosure. Now, the other cool thing was the money behind a lot of this. Mika won $20,000 for first place. That's a cool payday. Chris Barnes coming in with $11,000, Brad Angelo for $7,000, Pete Weber for $5,000, and Tom Hess for $4,000. Pretty good payday for all of these guys for a couple of days of bowling. There are only 2 events left in the PBA 50 season. We have the Norfolk Classic in Virginia coming up starting on July 28th. And then finally, at the end, we have the Tournament of Champions coming in at the very, very end of the year. So PBA 50 season is nearing a close already. Getting close to the end of the summer, that's when the season ends for those guys. And then we have a couple of months until the PBA season starts in 2026. Now, we haven't had any PBA news in a while. I don't know if there's any changes coming into the PBA this year. Usually we get a little bit of news coming in around the August timeframe. So we will probably receive some actual PBA news coming up in the next couple of weeks. So make sure to stay tuned for that. It should be very entertaining to see what is going on the season next year. It was a very successful PBA season as well this year. Very successful PWBA season. So hopefully we can see a little bit more, few more tournaments, a little bit more excitement, a little bit more coverage for all of these things. Finally, one final thing to note is Bowling TV hosted the Junior Gold Championships to a lot of success for a lot of people. This was a free way to watch the Junior Gold Championships, and this was basically an all-day event. They had the U12 divisions for boys and girls, U14, U16, and U18. So many matches going on all throughout the day. It sounds like they were only done past midnight on the final night of the finals. So huge shout out to Bowling TV for hosting those Junior Gold finals. But with that is everything we have for today's podcast. If you want to listen to a bonus segment today where we're going to talk about practice and how to prepare for the league season that's coming up very soon, how to step into practice after a couple of months off, make sure to go subscribe on our Patreon, ZVL Bowling on Patreon. But otherwise, that is going to be it for episode 1 of the Bowling Breakdown. I want to thank everybody who clicked on this episode. We are going to have these coming out weekly on Mondays. Make sure to stay tuned every week on Monday on your favorite podcast platform. We are live on Spotify, on Apple, and on YouTube as well. So make sure to go stay tuned over there. Otherwise, if you want to stay tuned for the ZVL channel, you can find me pretty much everywhere. You can find me on TikTok. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram. You can find me on YouTube, Twitch. Like I said, Patreon. We have a Discord, a lot of different places that you can find ZVL bowling content. Otherwise, I want to hear from you guys. If you like this series, what are some things you want to hear on this podcast in the future? Thank you guys all so much for watching and listening to this very first episode. We will see you all on the next one.